Hey folks, it's your old pal. It's Stu. It's David Stewart. Back for a retro review. It may not feel like a retro review to lots of you because there starts to be this blur of culture after about the year 2000. Pirates of the Caribbean. It actually came out in 2003, same year as Return of the King. A bit of a high watermark when it comes to popular blockbuster high concept fantasy movies. And indeed, this is a fantasy movie. It just happens to be about pirates and cursed treasure rather than cursed rings. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a movie that really is an example of being more than the sum of its parts. And in fact, if you were to kind of pull it and tease it apart like I do with a lot of movies and like look at this aspect and this aspect and try to poke holes in it, you'll miss the forest for the trees with this movie, and you won't realize that the qualities of the movie is the quality of the movie really comes from how all of the various elements mix together to make something great. It's really a holistic kind of movie to look at rather than, we could look at the various parts. The cinematography is great. The special effects are great. The lighting's great. The sets are great. Costumes are great. The acting is superb. Maybe you're going to poke holes in some presentation of the plot or this and that, or inaccuracies, historical inaccuracies, which I don't think matter for a fantasy movie, but you'll miss the forest for the trees. And I think this is a great example of a very well executed movie and a well executed story. It was written by Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, who had written Aladdin and a whole bunch of other hit movies. Very experienced writing team. They knew what they were doing. They knew how to write a classic plot with a classic conflict, which is there's this cursed Aztec gold. It's causing the pirates to be cursed. They're trying to gather all the gold back so that they can solve the curse and stop being undead skeletons. As well as there's a love triangle, sort of maybe a quadrilateral in it as well. Really classic story writing technique. And all of the characters fit, for the most part, really classic archetypes. I think you wouldn't be wrong to look at a movie like this and trying to pull apart what makes this movie great and say it's Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow. Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow is what makes Pirates of the Caribbean. And you would not be wrong to say that. However, Johnny's character really only comes off because of all of the other classically written archetypical characters that surround him and play off of his character and allow his character to be as funny and entertaining and lovable as he is. He's a buffoon. He's a jester. He's a manic, possibly syphilitic type of character. He's intended to be comedic and funny, and that wouldn't work if you didn't have Orlando Bloom, who was also in Lord of the Rings that came out that year. If you didn't have Orlando Bloom being the straight man, being the handsome, heroic, and good character, to have that kind of rascally rogue of Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow come off, you really needed someone like Orlando Bloom. You really needed Keira Knightley as what I call the Star Wars princess, kind of archetypical character. That's just an active female character, right? Kind of like Princess Leia. And it's funny because Keira Knightley was actually in a Star Wars movie. She was in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. She was Queen Amidala's double. I think she was only like 17 when she did it. So she was actually a Star Wars princess, and she's playing the Star Wars princess type of character in Pirates of the Caribbean, and it works well. Her interactions with Jack and with Will and with all the other characters, this assertive female, kind of kick-ass female character, that wouldn't work if you didn't have all of the other characters playing off of her, and she enhances Jack's character. Likewise, we would think the plot setup, the conflict of silly skeletons trying to solve their skeletonhood, it just wouldn't work if you didn't have guys like Jeffrey Rush playing Barbossa, being really evil, really owning every scene that he's in. He's just such a good actor, and he owns that character. Like, he owns pretty much every character he's done in the movie. He just does such a great job with it. The movie wouldn't work without him, just as it wouldn't work without Johnny Depp, just as it wouldn't work without any of the elements that are there. Gore Verbinski does a great job directing this movie and pulling all of these things together to make one great whole out of it. It's got a great score, very memorable, very bombastic, which goes along with the high action of the movie. But there's plenty of moments where characters are able to sit on a beach and have a conversation and talk about things and reveal important thoughts from the past, reveal important elements about the story so that the audience can think about the conflict as well as make plans for what's going to happen and just entertain us and let us get to know those characters. Everything works together to make a harmonious whole, as I say. One thing that I realized watching it that's often overlooked when people talk about movies like this are things like lighting. This is a technical thing, not to say, hey, this is this element that makes the movie good, but it's an important technical thing to talk about, which is this is a movie that feels dark but isn't dark because of very clever lighting and really good use of contrasting colors. So you're trying to evoke the feeling of a Disney ride. And in fact, this is a movie that's based on a ride. How do you make a movie that's based on a ride? You duplicate its mood and you duplicate its aesthetics, and visually, Pirates of the Caribbean does that. And by the way, we used to say Pirates of the Caribbean. When we go to the Disney ride, we say Pirates of the Caribbean. But whenever we actually talk about the region on Earth, we say Caribbean. I don't know why we do that. Just a funny thought that came to my head. But if you've ever been on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, the mood of that ride is duplicated in the movie. Now, after the movies came out and were this huge success, they put elements of the movies into the ride. But the ride was always the way it was. It always had these set pieces that were there. And in fact, the sets, and they pulled them out and like made the movie look like pieces of the ride. It was such a good use of inspiration, kind of using the skeletons that are there as a way to make a plot is really good. I know I'm going off kind of on this tangent, but it's really important to think about how do you make a movie out of a ride? Well, if you have great writers and a great director and great actors, and you're able to make those sets and you're able to duplicate the mood, then yes, you can totally make a great movie series out of just the vibe of a Disney dark ride, sitting in a boat, going through and seeing little scenes of animatronic pirates laughing and shooting at each other and trying to capture winches. And they've toned that down over the years, by the way. It used to be a little bit more, I don't know, risque. The lighting is part of that though, because it's a dark ride. If you go on the ride, it's dark. Everything's dark. The lighting is very dim. They use, it's not real lamps, but it's intended to look like lamps. It's flickering, it's amber colored, right? It only lights specific things to help create the illusion that this is a real scene with real objects and maybe real people as you're going through the ride. And so when they do that in the movie, the way that they get that feeling in the movie is that lots of scenes are just shot at night. And the way that they light them is they have a key light that's like an amber or a yellow. And then the fill light or the lighting, the backlight, the light for the background is a blue or green, right? So not really the fill light, but the backlighting will be blue or green. And so those contrasting colors, we end up interpreting the blue color as darkness, even though it's very clear. And this is important because we have these beautiful actors and actresses. We want to light them. We have this great makeup with the pirates and great costumes. We want the audience to see them, but we also want it to feel like the ride. And Gore Verbinski's able to do this and manage this visual space really, really well. I think it's very underrated how well the movie is lit to show you those great actors and to provide the mood from the ride, but still allow you to see things on a movie screen without it actually being dark. It feels dark without being dark, and I think that goes a long way towards this being an adaptation of a ride. It's so wild. So wild to think about with that. But anyway, that's my big point. Everything kind of comes together. The plot, you have a really classic ABC story. The things are written with classic approaches, just executed really well and with a couple of unique sort of twists. So the main conflict is the pirates are trying to gather back all their gold in order to solve this curse that makes them be skeletons. You have Johnny Depp. His motivation is he's really the B story character when you think about it, right? And he's trying to get his ship back, right? He's a protagonist, and we do focus on Johnny a lot. He's trying to get the Black Pearl back, which is his ship. You have a love triangle between, Elizabeth and Will and the Commodore, right? The British captain or admiral, and we have to resolve that, and all these things have to get resolved. We have to have Will and Elizabeth matriculate their relationship on some level. That's like the C story. Everything comes together in a big climax. This movie was longer than a lot of movies at the time, and I think this gave studios more permission to make longer movies, longer action movies. I think it was 2.5 hours long. It's pretty long for a fantasy pirate movie, and people felt that at the time, but I think we were coming out of a period where every movie had to be like 85 minutes. If you weren't around for cinema in, post 1997, post Ground Zero, there was this big trend of every action movie, every movie that came out during the summer, especially, it had to be 85 minutes. And that was so that you could get in an extra showing every hour. The bean counters determined it should be 85 minutes. So every story had to fit very tightly into that time frame, about 90 minutes, including the credits, I think. And you had to leave things on the cutting room floor, or you had to cut it really tight in order to get to that 85-minute mark. So I remember lots of movies from that time, especially by like Jerry Bruckheimer, where it just felt way too frantic. The movies felt like they just didn't pause to tell you the story at all. Pirates feels frantic, but tells you the whole story. It feels like you are on a ride. It feels like a roller coaster because the plot is always going forward. And in fact, I think it's a great example of how to efficiently tell a story. Every single scene is working on setting or characters or plot, and usually two of the three. If you have the characters sitting down and having a conversation, they're talking about the plot. If you are having lots of action happening, you're going to have dialogue interspersed in there that is revealing elements of the plot, moving the plot forward. Whenever the characters are taking action, it's to move the story in a direction that it needs to go in. It's to change directions or reveal a new thing or discover something or run away, to plan, to do the next thing, right? Everything is very efficient when it comes to the writing. So even though it's 2.5 hours long, there's a lot of plot that's stuffed in that 2.5 hours and a ton of characterization. And if they hadn't taken the time to have Johnny Depp be Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, it just would not have worked as well as it did. It needed to be the movie that it was in order to be the hit that it was. And I think it's a good movie to look at if you're looking to figure out what makes a good movie, not just in terms of its elements, but how these things all go together. If Jack Sparrow didn't have the costume that he had, he would be less of a character. If he wasn't standing next to Orlando Bloom as Will, he would be less of a character. The plot wouldn't work without Jeffrey Rush in it, bringing his acting talent to the character of Barbossa. The characters really drive this story, and I think that's what audiences tend to connect with the most, with the characters. Just like the reason that Empire Strikes Back is so beloved is because that is the Star Wars movie that has the best characterization of all the Star Wars movies. So anyway, leave me your thoughts down below. I would love to read them and know what you thought about it. Last thing I'll say is that I think this movie inspired a lot of trends in Hollywood that some people would find not so desirable. A big one is the comedy. This is really a comedic movie. It's a comedy. Johnny Depp is a buffoon. He's a jester. He's playing a comedic character. There's tons of jokes. Even addition to Johnny being silly, you have a lot of comic relief. You have the two pirates, the one with the fake eye, being comic relief all the time. And they move into a more C-3PO, R2-D2 kind of role in the movies that follow up, but they're comic relief characters. You have comic relief parrot, comic relief monkey, comic relief, first mate. Everybody's comic relief. It's a comedy. So what did action movies after this start to do? They started to make everything comedic. Rather than having a C-3PO and R2-D2 being the Greek chorus and also the comic relief of the movies, instead what you get is the main characters are now trying to be comedic all the time too, until you have Thor being a comedic movie, right? Thor is a comedian, which is really weird, right? You would think of him being less of that, but you end up with characters being really, really comedic, say, for example, in the Marvel movies. But I think you see this in a lot of other action movies as well. There's a desire to capture some of that lightning in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie without realizing that what made it good was how all these things work together. It wasn't just that Johnny Depp was funny. It was really that everything about the movie happened to work harmoniously towards the whole. Maybe that's reinforced by the fact that you had Robert Downey Jr. being so good as Iron Man a couple years later and bringing a little bit of comedy into it. But, I'll leave that discussion for another day. I would love to hear your thoughts on that as well. I don't judge Pirates by its influence that it had. Maybe making movies too long, too much comedy. I judge it by what it was. And in 2003, it was definitely a fresh movie. It was definitely a really good popcorn flick for 2003. And I think it's loved for good reasons. Leave me your thoughts down below. King Leper pre-order is live for the ebook. We will have new physical editions coming at the end of July, at the same time, I think July 25th. Blue editions, so they'll be blue, hardback and paperback. So if you've been waiting for the paperback, that will be out in July. Don't forget to join my mailing list, dvspress.com/list. And if you like pirates and want to read one of my books that has pirates in it, it's over here. Boom, I have a trilogy. My fantasy pirate trilogy. Here's the first one, City of Silver. Fan favorite of books. There's more pirates in this one, Tyrants Gallo, and there's still some more pirates in the third one as well. So if you like pirates and you like fantasy pirates, check out those books. They are well loved by my readers, and I bet you'll like them as well. City of Silver is the first one. Have a great one, and I'll see you all next time.